You know, this is my background just because it brings me joy. I was just about to start up DaVinci Resolve, and my brain literally went to me, should I call this something like the €230 million fiasco? Or should I just put down sort of an update of curiosity? And whatever the title of this video is tells you whether I was being clickbaity or not. We'll see how that works out. Well, hello, I'm Alone of Finland. This is to do with Eve Frontier, but it's not Eve Frontier itself as far as it goes for gameplay. This is to do with a lot of the stuff and some of the newer news that's come out around about this that I wanted to talk about because honestly I think it's not great. Now, I've been out on the record as saying that I don't quite know where this game fits into. It seems to be a development on a couple of ideas that are not sort of linked together. For instance, fairly recently there was a stream or a chat on the Eve Frontier YouTube page that was talking about base building and things like this. But there isn't any real building, there is just you have an area of space and you place down structures. And there was quite a lot of hype in this video about the fact that you could rotate the structures in 3 dimensions, which, yeah, sure, you can put them together to do the good old-fashioned TTP or time to penis and build yourself a space deck if you want, but you're not actually building anything, you're just placing stuff together. It's not sort of the same as other sort of building multiplayer games where you're building a construction for defense that will help you, or you're putting together a base that looks the way you want it placed. It's just sort of the place down standard objects, and it doesn't really affect the gameplay in any way. It's purely cosmetic, which was quite an odd thing to see so much effort. And go and have a look at the Eve Frontier if you don't understand this, but the Eve Frontier YouTube page, this video, there was a lot of people that were very hyped for the fact that you could rotate something around 3 axes, which that kind of is a good summary of the weird hype around this game from within the company. But second to that, there's another thing about this new announcement that Eve Frontier is going to be, it's been mentioned before that it was going to be a blockchain game, and the idea is that you pay to get your blockchain, you pay to mine your blockchain, so you can actually make money in the game. Except it's partnering with Sui. Now, if you don't know this name, because a lot of people don't, Sui is the sort of blockchain coin that runs on top of the Sui protocol. The Sui protocol that has had some quite severe vulnerabilities of recent. Something else that ran on the Sui protocol not even 3 months ago. Somebody managed to exploit $2.4 million out of it, just because it's not as secure. People think of these blockchains in the way that they're advertised, that they're secure, they're unbreakable, and that's just bollocks for all of them. When it comes to distributed certification systems, you need to attack multiple points to be able to break the system, to break the ledger, because these are just ledger systems. That's what it is. It's several thousand people containing a ledger, several thousand machines containing the ledger. So instead of going into a bank and having to get your fake credit card past one teller in the bank, you're going into a bank where 3,000 people are checking that same card, and you need to fool at least half of them to do something. That's the idea of it. So while it is more secure than some other systems, in practice, a lot of the smaller blockchains are not as secure as traditional banking, nowhere near as secure as traditional banking. So that's part of the problem. And then the other side of it is that when you're mining stuff, and I am not fully knowledgeable on this, the way that it's mining is not the standard way that blockchain used to be created, where people would go through and everybody would sort of mine together and the processing power would be there, and then figure out the next section, and whoever figures it out fastest is the person that gets that little piece of the pie. This is now based off a system that is more balanced towards the people that already own a whole load. So it's unclear as to whether CCP would just be buying sections of that to put it in the game, which in itself is a logistic nightmare, or whether there would be actual mining going on behind the scene, which is a lot of processing power. But in general, going with such an unknown thing is concerning, at least. But if I just bring this over, here's a funny example of this. If you actually go on to Sui.io, which is the standard thing, and by the way, I didn't put this in incognito mode because I didn't want to show any of my bookmarks or stuff like this. I put it in incognito mode because I would much rather pornography show up in my search history than blockchain nonsense. But if you actually have a look in here, it's the most innovative companies build on Sui, and then there's this list of them, and you might notice some names that are slightly changed. Like, for instance, it came up a little while ago about the Alibaba Cloud, which is not the same as Alibaba the seller, and the rest of it is just tiny little things that are not doing much. That these are not particularly reputable names. This is curious, I think is the best way to put it. It's a curious choice. Never mind that the actual Sui coins have decreased in value phenomenally over the past couple of months. So it's sort of, we've contracted with something. Now, to be fair, a lot of the whole blockchain stuff is crashing at the moment, wiping off a lot of value. So that could just be Sui is getting affected because the entire industry is getting affected, or this could be the dot-com bubble popping all over again, but with blockchain. Or it could just be a simple fact that the company is not particularly great. There have been quite a lot of problems when it's come to Sui. Now, here's some of the stuff that is... It's different about this because Sui is sort of gamed more for lots of transactions as opposed to the whole mining thing of traditional blockchains. So the idea is that Sui, instead of having accounts for everybody, Sui has objects for specific things. So before, with like standard Bitcoin, everybody would have a Bitcoin account and Bitcoin would transact between those accounts. And this version is sort of, there are objects for everything, and you might have many objects. And objects could exist on their own. Also, by the way, one of the main companies that owns sort of the whole everything around about Sui controls the vast majority of the money that's in it. And that money, one of the things that they actually advertise is the fact that Sui is stable. It doesn't really increase the same way as the others, which actually means that in a time where everything else was going up, they weren't. So they're taking a negative and framing it as a positive, which is just not good. But then the other sort of, the idea that they have mechanisms for sort of parallel transactions and doing things in multiple ways. A lot of what they frame it as is a positive, but actually from a networking point, it's a vulnerability. You're increasing the ability of the network to do things, but you're creating more vulnerabilities that could be attacked. something that they have done to sort of counteract those vulnerabilities is in choosing programming languages like Move, that should, in theory, reduce vulnerabilities, but actually, so far, it hasn't. If anything, it's been more vulnerable. It's been attacked. I mean, one individual managed to pull 2.4 million out. Is impressive. Now, one of the things that's sort of marketed about Sui is the fact that it uses this instant finality model of processing things, and that's essentially, if it's written down, if it happens, it immediately gets certified. As you make a transaction, it sort of shoots out to a random group of recoverers and finalises it. And there are so many different ways that this could be vulnerable, it's just not funny. But a good example of what the hell is going on was actually in Cetus. This was, I think it was in May 2025, where there was a vulnerability to do with the databases that were connected to it. And somebody managed to basically defraud them out of $230-ish million. And it took less than 15 minutes to do this, right? 230 million gone ish. I think it was a little under that, but over 220. Now, obviously, this is a big problem, but it's a problem for the people that have got the money. And because of the nature of blockchain, it's actually quite hard if you don't catch the people who are moving it, or they move that stuff too fast for you to see. The problem is with the recovery methods, especially when you are dealing with a decentralized currency. Now, the sort of update on that hack was they managed to recover, and one of the things that they talked about, by the way, Cetus runs on the Sui protocols, this is why they're connected, but they managed to recover a lot of that money. They managed to recover like $162 million worth of that money, which means that somebody still managed to get away with at least $70 million. Bearing in mind that $70 million is a higher take-home value than CCP's entire turnover. So having a game that is built around a financial blockchain thing where mistakes and hacks on that blockchain have exceeded the value of your company, that just seems like a recipe for disaster. Obviously, CCP is going to be insulated. It's never going to sort of lose all of its own money because this is a separate entity. The money that would exist in this game is separate to that. But I just don't see it working. I really don't see it working. Then on top of that, there is, in fact, entirely separate to this whole Sui idea, the part that I still can't get my head around is, what is this game? Because it has sort of the exploration and hardcore elements, or harder core elements than EVE Online. But it's got wipes similar to Rust. So what you're doing is not permanent, with the exception of any sort of blockchain dollar you can pull out of it. But the people that do blockchain, the people that do these cryptocurrencies, are the people that are not looking to put in work. That's the whole point of this. They build a system, the system does the work for them. It's not the same as the grind mentality of somebody that plays EVE Online for 18 hours a day. They are very separate things, and that's the part I can't get my head around. It doesn't seem to lock in my brain, and if you have different feelings on this, please explain why. Because I can understand the idea of it as a hardcore thing. I can understand the hardcore version of EVE Online, definitely. But at the same time, this, even as a hardcore version, I would suggest making another section within the EVE universe to play more hardcore. Maybe like a gateway back to the Earth-based systems, the Earth galaxy or something like that, where another harder core version exists. But making it as a separate game seems like building a Starbucks over the road from your Starbucks. You're competing with yourself. It seems like Donald Trump building a casino and then having a fantastic idea and building a casino right across the road from it, as if that was ever going to be successful. That's what this seems like to me from a gaming point of view. But then from a blockchain point of view, a crypto bro point of view, it's work to get your stuff, and that's not what crypto bros are about. It seems weird to me. It seems like a game that exists from many different ideas, but none of them come together. And that sort of base building, WASD controls in an EVE Online game. I don't understand this. I'd love for somebody to explain this. I'd love to sit down with a developer and just batter them with questions. Going, why, what, where, when? Also, the idea of the entire... When you look at the actual galaxy map and the fact that you have to jump between all those places from the experience that I had with it, what if you want to explore? What if you want to do it for that? Your base building is always going to be temporary if you're moving. This just seems like an oddity to me. I wish I could get my head around the mentality behind it. And to actually get that, I think one of the best things, if I'm given a hint, is if you were to, for instance, take the people that are talking about, like for instance, the base building or the developers talking about the WSAD controls, and get them to explain the other side. So get them to explain the blockchain, and get the blockchain bros to explain the ideas behind these things to see if it's cohesive. Because it all seems like very disjointed development. I don't know. That's the way it seems to me. I don't mean, well, I do mean to be critical, obviously, but I don't mean to be critical in a way of this shouldn't exist, I think this is disgusting, blah, 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 stop wasting this money. I want to put it out there specifically so that if somebody sees it, somebody might understand, somebody might be able to explain to me, but also if a developer sees it, they'd know what some people are feeling. I think this is like a good, like a feedback, maybe not a good feedback, but a definite feedback of, I'm watching what you're doing and I still don't understand what the fuck is going on. I could understand the validity of somebody saying, well, we're not designing this game for you, but then who are you designing it for? What's your ideal person? Who are you trying to attract to this game? That's what I'm sort of curious about. I just don't get it. For the sort of hardcore play mode, I could understand that, but that seems an oddity mixed in with everything else. So, yeah, that's what I was sort of saying. That's my best bit that I can sort of put together about it, because I hadn't gone through any of this stuff in like a month and a half, and I've just gone through a whole load of videos, and still I'm sat here questioning what's going on. And especially when I hit that one and realised, hey, I've heard of that before. Why have I heard of that? Oh yeah, because they've lost millions, quite literally hundreds of millions in the past year. It's like, you find out that in May they lost 200 odd million, and then in September they lost another 2.5 million, and you go, hey, let's announce this. It makes me uncomfortable. Like that genuinely makes me uncomfortable, because you've just had two big attacks against this ecosystem, against this protocol, and you go, right, well, now's the time to actually announce that. That's like questionable publicity to me. So yeah, this has been a bit of a quieter one. I was actually filming for something else when I was listening to all of this. And it got so bad at one point I noticed that I hadn't even listened to the warnings of my armour getting blitzed through. But yeah, this is a curiosity, so I'm just going to put that out there as a curiosity. It's a video of, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I'd love to know. I'm curious about it. And I do think that every development company should follow what they think is good. If you have an idea, you should run with it. Some might be hits, some might not be. The original Dust first-person shooter was a decent first-person shooter. If it hadn't been PlayStation exclusive, if it had been on PC, I imagine it would have been a success, especially with the fan base around EVE at the moment. It kind of shows that somebody had a good idea in development, and then somebody possibly taking PlayStation exclusive money, or maybe they just had a small accident where a railway spike ended up through their eye socket and they had a severe traumatic brain injury, but they decided, hey, let's put this on a separate platform and fuck the entire thing into the ground. That is kind of curious because it's remnant of this. Whereas the new one, EVE Vanguard, looking good. It looks like a nice, interesting extraction shooter, which is kind of all the rage at the moment. And they are heading more PvE. And now with the recent mining updates to EVE Online, it's looking like they're finally sort of understanding the PvE audience within their gaming community. But even with all of that understanding, I'm still looking at this. Looking from a view of somebody who's played EVE Online for 20 years, who plays extraction shooters, who plays base building games, who plays wipe-based games. I have a fairly wide genre in the stuff that I play online. I just nag that over here. This is all of the things that I sort of run through, and then the other games. And these are the ones that are on this system. And yet still, farming simulators, I don't remember when I turned that on. But still, this doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah. Thoughts, opinions. I am aware, because they have spoken about it in the past, that CCP is looking at all of the videos. They are looking at the feedback at this stuff. They are paying a lot of attention to what people are saying about it and trying to adjust accordingly, which I think is a fantastic thing. I'm very sort of encouraged about that sort of methodology. I think that's a good change for CCP, to pay attention to what's being said, not just the fanboys, the fangirls, the Evaboos, or the CSM. Could have said CSM and sort of wiped out those first three, but trying to pay attention to future gamers, not just the Evaboos. This one confuses me, I just don't understand it. So yeah, that's my confusion at stupid o'clock in the evening. Gonna go back to filming the other one now. Gonna try and forget I watched any of this stuff. I'm gonna close that hidden tab with all of the stuff to do with cryptocurrency, because my fuck me, I can't be arsed. And yeah, bye.